Hello, I'm Roxana Martel, and I'm going to talk about the habits of mind. There are 16 habits of mind that we educators like to use with our children, and I'm going to focus on 4 of them that I like to use with my students who get special education services. The first one I'm going to talk about is persistence. Persistence is firmly continuing in a course in spite of difficulty or opposition. I like the Chinese proverb that goes with persistence. It says, fall down 7 times, get up 8. Persistence with my students, how I would teach this, is that I would give them a graphic organizer, a paper in 4 sections. The first section, we would put the word and the definition. The second section is a picture of an example of persistence. This picture is a child working on a puzzle. The third block is an example of non-persistence. So this is a child frustrated from the puzzle who has quit trying. And in the 4th section, the child will draw their own picture of themselves being persistent. I like the example of many of my special education teacher friends who, through persistence, have taught children to do remarkable things. In particular, Miss Connie, who would teach children to walk. Children in kindergarten and 1st grade who were maybe 6, 7 years old, whose parents had given up on them ever being able to walk. And Connie every year would teach about 1 child to walk. She was persistent in her work and persistent in her ability to help other children. The next one I'm talking about is empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others, but it's more than just sharing others' feelings. It's acting on those and making a difference because of them. How I would teach this to my children is when they make a comment about another child. For instance, if they say, Miss, Jose is crying, then I want to say to them, why? Think about it. Why is Jose crying? What can we do to help Jose if he's crying? A person who exemplifies empathy is Celeste Mergens. I've never met Celeste, but I volunteer for an organization that she founded. Celeste realized that girls in some parts of the world can't go to high school and get an education because they had no way to control their menstrual period. So she designed a reusable product that works. Then she started Days for Girls and organized thousands of people to make and distribute this product. In the last 10 years, she has reached 1.5 million girls. So Celeste not only empathized with these girls, she took it a step further and did something about that empathy. She helped. The third one I'm focusing on is responsible learned optimism. Optimism is the attitude that you can do something if you really try. Responsible learned optimism is knowing that if you don't have optimism instilled in you already, this is something that can be taught. You can teach children to be optimistic and better themselves. The way I do this is if a child thinks that they can only write 1 sentence, maybe I can help them learn to write 3. If they can't write 3, if they can't write 1, then we use the word yet. You can't write it yet, or I can't do this yet. And so my students won't say to me, Miss, I can't do it. They have to say, Miss, I can't do it yet. It's an optimistic attitude that I think that I can instill into my students. An example of this in someone I know is a friend of mine named Barbara. She is someone who is so optimistic that she doesn't complain about things, she just fixes them. When she was upset about things going on in her neighborhood, she ran for a neighborhood council and got on their board. When she had a job that she could do better at and make more money, if she'd had a better education, she went back to school and got a master's degree and got the education and the job. So I can use Barbara as an example of optimism for my students. And finally, what I would teach my students is about making and fixing mistakes. That making mistakes is okay. Studies have shown that anytime we make a mistake, more synapses fire in our brain. So when we make mistakes, we are actually learning and growing from them. Every mistake we make makes life a little bit better. I can teach this to my students after we've talked about it and how we can do this, how mistakes are okay in our classroom. Then I'll split them into groups and we'll make posters with things that say, when we make a mistake, synapses fire. This is a mistakes-friendly classroom. We value all mistakes. Mistakes welcome. This would not only be a fun activity, but then when we put the posters up, they'll have something to remind them of this throughout the year. An example of people who learn from their mistakes are the rock wall climbers. I watched some competitions last year, and every time these climbers failed on a wall, they would get right back up, only the next time they would know, I have to reach a little further, I have to jump a little harder, I have to maybe take a different path. But they learned from their mistakes, and they gained from it and went back and tried again. So thank you. These are the habits of mind that I am focusing on: persistence, empathy, optimism, and making mistakes.